Hey, Immaterial World listeners. We know you're resolving to more personal exploration, curiosity, and spiritual wellness in 2026. So we're excited to announce the kickoff of our partnership with Wiser Books just in time for the new year.
Wiser works with so many creators and with titles across spirituality, relationships, mysticism, mindfulness, and more. You'll certainly find alignment with what's next for you in your journey.
For those in the immaterial world, use code immaterial30 at checkout at redwheelwiser.com, linked in the show notes. That's immaterial30 for 30% off your purchase through the end of March. Happy exploring!
A new year gives us the opportunity to welcome our desires and set out our intentions of how to move forward towards goals. But as the early weeks of January come to pass, too often we abandon resolutions, never giving them the anchoring needed to flourish through the year.
As winter is a time of energy conservation and preparing for what's ahead, let's take an evening to come together in a community ritual, ground into our intended achievements with purpose, and build actionable next steps using astrological touch points in the months to come.
On January 18th, join us alongside Immaterial World guest and friend astrologer Valerie Mesa for Make It Happen, a digital ritual to move forward with confidence and determination, set in alignment with Mercury conjunct Mars, as well as a new moon in Capricorn. Through an intention-setting ceremony, you will acknowledge your goals for 2026, power them with resolve, and actively set next steps on your calendar to continue building towards what you desire.
Attendees will be led through a series of interactive exercises, including community tarot, journaling prompts, and ritual to acknowledge their highest intentions for the new year, guided meditation to intuitively tap into any messages meant to carry them through what's next, and chatting early 2026 astrology to calendarize next steps in alignment with the energy of upcoming transits. Link in show notes for more and to register. See you there.
Welcome to Immaterial World,
a dedicated and transparent space to recenter how we explore glamour, magic, culture, and everything else we love together.
Immaterial world, come meet me in the immaterial world. As far as the galaxy goes, we're flying in the immaterial world. Immaterial world, come meet me in the immaterial world. So we're flying in the immaterial world, the immaterial
world. Chrissy Rutherford is a writer, speaker, content creator, and mental health advocate committed to fostering honest conversations about well-being in the digital age. With over 15 years' experience in fashion and media, she now uses her platform to destigmatize mental health struggles, share personal stories, and champion vulnerability as a powerful tool for connection.
In 2021, she launched FWD JOY, a personal development newsletter that has cultivated a loyal leadership exploring topics like anxiety, self-worth, relationships, spirituality, and the pursuit of joy.
So I've been talking to a friend a lot recently about leaning into cringe and how he's been challenging himself to do something cringe every day. And this is funny for me because I don't really ever think that being authentic or showing vulnerability or being a little silly is cringe. I'm pretty whimsical, so there's not a lot that makes me uncomfortable. But recently I did something that I could classify as cringe, which was I went into the comments section of a post that our guest had made about trading their therapist for a tarot reader. And I said, oh my God, you have to come on Immaterial World. Okay, so that's a little
I was
cringe.
I read that story. What are you talking about?
And you know, people can see that. People can see that I did that. But look where it led. Look where we are today. Because being cringe gets you places. And
Also, closed mouths don't get fed.
right?
So true.
Right? So this is someone that I've followed for years in fashion, for styling, for, all kinds of guidance in that industry. So our guest is not really a stranger to me. And when Jez and I were concepting our podcast, she was on a list of dream guests that I had because, like me, and I don't know her personally yet, so we're going to hear her story a little bit more in depth today, but she comes from the world of fashion, but has always injected astrology and divination and spirituality into how she moves in the world. And now she also has built out a platform around this called FWD JOY. So we're going to talk about these topics and more. I am so fucking excited to welcome to Immaterial World, Chrissy Rutherford. Chrissy, thank you for being here today.
Oh my God, my eyes are like tearing up. You're going like straight to my Pisces heart.
Right. I was
sweet.
gonna say, as a fellow Pisces, I don't think we know what cringe actually is.
Listen, I cringe at myself all the time. I am like so earnest on the internet, and I just I don't care.
Yeah, it's so
And
true,
it
right?
also it just it passes. That's the thing is I try not to hold on to things. Sure, you can feel cringe, but just let it go. It's fine.
My Pisces moon gives me that power too. I think it's a good thing. You just have to be authentic and move forward.
It's okay. And what's cringe to me might not actually be cringe to some viewers. Maybe it's cringe to a lot of people. It just is what it is. We're never going to make everyone happy.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just can't imagine being that authentic and vulnerable. So let's say cringe is out for 2026. For sure.
I posted on Threads earlier this year, maybe last year. I wrote, "I am earnest, but I am free."
I like that.
And I really am. So trust me, guys, it works.
What was the catalyst to knowing that where you were in your older life was not in alignment anymore? And what was the catalyst to making that change? And were they separate instances?
So leaving my former fashion career, sometimes I think it's just that little whisper in the back of your mind that is you're meant to do more. You're meant for more than this. And I'm a Capricorn moon. So unfortunately, since high school, I have felt that I was meant to do great things with my life. That has always been hanging over me. I just I knew that about myself. I don't know exactly what I'm gonna do, but I'm going out there and I'm gonna make something of myself. And listen, I've talked about this obviously so many times, but my job at Bazaar was my dream job. I loved that job so much. I worked there for almost 9 years. Not to mention I'd also interned there for 2 summers while I was in college. So that brand felt like me and I felt like that brand. And so walking away from it was also really incredibly hard. But, there's also there's the fashion that people see. And then there's the corporate side of it that nobody sees unless you're on the inside. And there was just a lot of corporate politics that were going on that I just I could not get on board with. And so I knew I had to leave.
Do you mind actually giving a little bit of a Cliff's Notes of your, sort of high school, college into the fashion industry trajectory and then, sort of where you are now?
So I would say by the time I was in middle school, I knew that I wanted to work in fashion. I just grew up always loving clothes and loving shopping. And then magazines, my dad would bring magazines home for me. And it came to the point where I was studying them, cover to cover, analyzing all the ads. And it's so funny because a friend of mine that actually I made via LiveJournal. Shout out to LiveJournal if anyone remembers that.
This is the third time LiveJournal has come up on the show.
I was also just talking about it the other night with my brother and his daughter because I was I was always meant to be yapping online. Like I was always meant to be putting my innermost thoughts online because I was doing that when LiveJournal launched. And so LiveJournal had this like big fashion community. So many people in it are actually working in fashion right now. And so this one girl that became like one of my closest friends, like we would talk on the phone all the time. And like when new magazines arrived in the mail, we would get on the phone and literally go page by page and talk about like the ads and what we liked and what we didn't like and like analyze, you know, the editorials, like everything. I was so like deep into it, like style.com, it's Fashion Week. I'm clicking through every runway look. Like I have like a photographic memory for some, you know, collections that I was looking at in like the year 2000 that just are ingrained in my mind. And so, you know, I had no idea what it was like to work at a fashion magazine or how I was even like gonna get there. Although like a really weird side story is like my dad is the reason why I ended up working at Harper's Bazaar and ended up at Hearst, because my dad is a painter, not the artist kind, like the house kind. And he works for a company in the city and they do a lot of like construction work in commercial spaces in New York City. And so for years, my dad was actually assigned to Hearst buildings. Like, so before the Hearst Tower, Hearst had like 4 or 5 buildings like all over the city. So my dad was the reason why I was getting all of these magazines. You know, he would bring home the Cosmopolitans, and my mom's like, why are you bringing these home for her? Harper's Bazaar, Marie Claire, like even Good Housekeeping, everything. And so my dad is like very personable. He's a Taurus with a Leo rising. And so he always makes friends like no matter where he goes. So even though he's not very important in the building, he, you know, becomes friendly with important people in the building. So when I needed an internship, you know, he asked someone who then like connected him with someone. And then, you know, I met first with a woman that worked at Good Housekeeping, and she was like, okay, you clearly want to work in fashion. So like, I'll connect you with HR. And then and they just asked me like, what magazine do you want to intern for? And I was like, Harper's Bazaar, because that was always my favorite. And so that's how I got my internship. And like, even I went to college in Connecticut. I majored in communication. Like, I didn't really want to go to fashion school. I knew that what I wanted to do was really just based on taste and like having the experience. And I just always knew that I had taste. Like, I was never something that I questioned about myself.
I love this. And I just have to say that I have a degree in magazine journalism, because at the time I got that was actually going to be a job that is maybe not a job now.
Barely.
But I remember saying, I looked at Vogue back then and I said, I want to be the person that picks that item that's on last look on the last page.
Well, that was kind of my thinking too. I didn't want to be a writer, actually. I would say I want to be the person that picks the clothes that go in the magazine, which is a market editor.
Yes, I love that.
So, you know, and it's so interesting because, you know, going into my first internship there, like it's a boot camp. Like, it's really hard. And I was the intern for the fashion director and her assistant, and they oversaw the French and Italian, basically the European markets in general. And like, she was really tough. Nicole Fritton, she knows, like everyone knows, but she's really lovely, and she's still working at Bazaar to this day. And, you know, I'm like, everything that I learned about like how to be professional and how to read a room and navigate those spaces, I learned as an intern. And I think also that internship was so vital, because I think a lot of us think that it would be really fun to work in fashion. And like, I'm the first one to say, like, it is not fun. It's a lot of work, and you have to, I think like most jobs, right? It's like, you have to really love it to want to be in it, because it's not just like, oh, I get to play dress up in the closet and then I go to events and this. And you think that as you get hired and you move up the ranks, you think it gets easier, but it actually never does. Like, sure, you might not be treated like shit, like if you're an intern, but the work is still getting piled on top. You have more and more responsibility. It never gets easier.
Yeah, and I love that, because I think that people who haven't worked in fashion or adjacent to fashion, they see that beauty, they see that glamour, but there's also a number of stereotypes that exist in fashion, and they exist for a reason. And one of them is there's a really slim margin, and this is just my opinion, but a slim margin of how people are expected to show up and what they're supposed to aspire to. And it's really heavily centered on aesthetic, for sure. And when I look at you as someone who comes into the world in such an authentic way, in a vulnerable way, that's so attractive for someone like me that's in fashion and never really showed up in those expectations. So, where does it come from to break from this and say, that's not really who I am, and that's not really what I'm about. So I'm going to come from this place of true personal curiosity and maybe like try out things that others aren't trying, or show up in ways that others are not showing up as.
I don't know. I think it's just like so innate in me. I don't think it's not something that I had to, I think, learn to do. I think I'm someone who is extremely driven, and I know that like whatever I want, I can have it as long as I go after it. Like, sure, maybe not every single thing, but for the most part, I'm like, the things that I want and I go after, I get them.
Pisces delusion. It will work every time.
Right.
Because you believe, how could this not be possible for me? And so when you go into it with that direction, and Jez and I talk about this all the time. So it's that delusion that if you think it's for you, then you will find the way for that to open up for you.
Like completely. And I just like the whole imposter syndrome thing. I'm like, miss me with all of that, because I can't relate. I really can't. Because I'm putting in the work. So it's like, if I'm getting, even at Bazaar, it's like, if I'm getting promoted or if I'm in different rooms than I used to be, I know I deserve to be there. I never question whether I deserve something. I'm like, I deserve anything that I want.
I love that. It's so important. So what is your relationship to fashion now with your career, and how do you choose aligned partnerships now? Like, what are the standards of collaboration that people have to meet to work with you?
I know. I think it's tricky. I love that now I get to choose how I'm involved in the industry, because I'm not an editor anymore. And even the transition of like, okay, editor into sort of influencer, and, influencer is still kind of like this umbrella term that holds like a lot of different types of people. And so, it's like, I never get offended if someone calls me an influencer, but at the end of the day, I still consider myself like a fashion industry professional, because I worked in magazines for over 10 years. So I'm like, put some respect on my name, please. And, the transition has also been easy in the sense that like I came into the partnership game with all the connections. Like I already know all the brands. And so that's been really nice, because I get to work with some of my dream brands in a way that I never even imagined that I would be able to. And so, I think it can be tricky, because obviously like being an influencer, one of the hardest things is this concept of having to promote something new constantly. And something I've tried to do when I have longer term partnerships is, if I can, I try to still incorporate some of the same products. Like maybe it's still the same bag or the same shoe, because I hate that. And like, I'm someone that when I love something, like I want to wear it all the time, and I wear it to death. Like I have the zipper boots from the Row. I've had them for like 6 years, and I still wear them constantly. Obviously it doesn't always work out that way, but that's just something I've tried to navigate. And inclusivity obviously is like really, really important to me. And unfortunately, we are living in some very strange times right now. And yeah, it's important to me. And like, if a brand reaches out to me, the first thing I'm going to do is like go through their Instagram, see who else they're collaborating with, see what the models look like that they're hiring and posting. Like just generally, like how far do I have to scroll until I find a Black person? Essentially, is the game I play. And yeah, I think I'm really fortunate because also I'm quite vocal, right? Like I talk a lot about racism in the industry and politics, the world, everything. So I do also feel like, sure, that is like classified as not brand safe for a lot of brands. And I'm like, that's fine because I don't want to work with those brands anyway. I feel like the brands that I do work with, they get it. And that's why they want to work with me.
Yeah, I love this. As someone who has been a trend forecaster for 20 years, I really came into this place. And the way that I approach that is more from a place of consumer sentience rather than it's all about red or you must wear a bow. It's like, why red or like, why a bow? And talking about the sentiment that's driving it. And I've been working on so many jobs recently, especially around marketing, where I'm talking about you have to understand the real struggle that people are going through right now. And if you think that that shouldn't be translated in your marketing or you're going to ignore the horrors of the world, then you are going to miss next year like you have never missed ever. I personally think that people are finally starting to understand the power of their dollar and how much that shifts.
Totally. I mean, look at Target.
Exactly. And I think that, for people to make that choice and to actually see that choice reflected in the earnings calls, it was such an inspiration for me. I was like, yes, like the consumer needs to understand their power.
Of course.
So I love everything that you're saying around this. And I think for you, again, going back to that influencer piece, it's like you do kind of wield a certain power of like, here's a brand that I'm working with. So there is a buy-in that I have that like, I believe that it is okay for you to purchase from these brands. So
absolutely. And even it's funny, I was at a dinner last night and I didn't know the woman who was seated to my left. And so we were chatting and I was telling her about, the work that I do. And so she was like, when it comes to like fashion or beauty, she was like, what's your angle? And I was like, oh, I never really like thought about that. Like sort of what's my point of view. But I was like, personally in my life, I'm a very like conscious consumer. And I think I've communicated that to my audience. And I think in turn, I'm also building a community of people who are also conscious consumers. Like, cause as I said, like, I'm not someone who, every time I post on Instagram, like I have to have a new outfit on. Like I repeat stuff all the time. I'm like, you're going to get this dress 3 different ways and you're going to like it. So, that's just because as I said, like, it really comes back to like when you are someone that loves clothes and you really love your clothes, you're gonna wear them over and over. So I try to buy things that I really love. And like, I don't really wear fast fashion. I stopped shopping at Zara and H&M over 10 years ago now. I think there's still kind of an argument around like, okay, the Aritzias, the J. Crews are still sort of considered fast fashion, but I do think, are not as harmful as like a Zara and H&M. So, and just like thinking about the material composition of the clothes that I'm wearing, like I'm not paying like $600 for a polyester sweater. Like I'm just not going to do that. Those elements are very important to me and like the way that I communicate what is worth spending money on.
Yeah, I love that. And, in my career, I've also worked as a design director and I've been part of the design and product development process. And you can't walk back what you know about how things are made or what the wastage looks like or what the toll is on the other side. And, people can watch documentaries, but when you're in it and you really understand like the depth of it, it's hard. And I, as an eternal optimist, hope that people, again, going back to that, consumers understanding the power of their dollars and how they're voting for what they want to see the future look like. I think brands should be a little bit more cringe and putting out there like, hey, we're going to try something new because we really actually do want to be more sustainable, or we really do want to be better in our efforts. So I'm always choosing the highest timeline and hoping that brands
I agree.
maybe want to move that way.
I always give the example of like Mara Hoffman, like the way that she turned her business
Yes.
around. And I actually
Yes.
interviewed her for my newsletter a few years ago because, you know, she went from making like neon printed bikinis to a completely like sustainable, inclusive brand. And sure, now she's like, you know, had to close down her brand. But I also think that was like a bit of a personal choice because she had been in the game for so long and maybe
Yeah.
just needed a break. But still, she, at least for the last 6 years of it, you know, was the kind of second generation of her brand. And it was really wild to see. And yeah, it requires more effort and more intention and probably a lot more money. But she's a small brand. So I'm like, if she can do it, the bigger
It's
brands can do
possible.
it too.
Right. It's totally possible.
If you could give consumers a little bit of a rundown on some things that they should be conscientious or values aligned about when they're buying from a brand or patronizing a brand, what would you say? Especially if people are kind of new to this idea of like, oh man, I should think about what I'm doing.
I know. You know, I think first, it's really important to say, like, we can't always know everything that's happening at a brand. Like, and I learned such a lesson around that in 2020 as things were all kind of happening, you know, after the murder of George Floyd. And, you know, something came out about Reformation, and a bunch of people were in my DMs being like, you know, are you going to talk about this? Because you post about Reformation, and I love that brand. I wore it all the time and truly spent my money there. But then this report came out about how they were mistreating their employees and whatnot. So even though I think that they gave off a somewhat like inclusive vibe, yeah, there was still mistreatment happening behind the scenes. And like, we can't know that. There's no way for us to know that. And, you know, I think there is a performativity to a lot of the inclusivity anyways, unfortunately. But it still helps because marketing is important and people seeing themselves is important. But I mean, I think one of the easiest things, as I kind of just talked about before, is like looking at the materials that your clothes are made of. There's so much crap out there. And I think especially when it comes to like winter stuff, like your knitwears and stuff like that, like you shouldn't be spending hundreds of dollars on sweaters that like are acrylic and are not even going to be comfortable. And then for me, the checklist is always like, I look at their Instagram, I look at their website. What do the models look like? What does the Instagram look like? It's pretty simple to kind of know where someone is at. Like, I always think it's interesting on like a beauty level when brands pitch me like hair care products and I go on their Instagram and it's like all like blonde women or just white women. I'm like,
Oh my God.
I'm black. Like my hair is not the same. Even if it's straight, my hair is not the same. Like what?
Yeah.
It's actually like really baffling to me why
that's
you would be pitching this to me of all people, you know, and then the same thing with skincare. I'm like, okay, yeah, but not all of our skin is the same. And so if you're trying to pitch me a product and I go on your Instagram and I don't see anyone as dark as me, that's a problem for me.
And we actually do have a mutual friend in skincare. Sophie Pavitt is someone that I work.
She's an icon.
She was a handbag designer when I first met her. We were like little babies at a little retail job together. Yeah, that's so funny. But
I really credit her with like completely changing my skin. Her advice. She's brilliant.
Yeah, it's funny because I was going to say her approach to skincare has always been so honest, and it's been really, showing befores and afters and being really clear about results. And, she says Facetune IRL. But I wanted to ask you an astrology question, which I feel like is a nice lead into this. With Uranus going into Gemini, do you think we're going to see a little bit more transparency around marketing, around how people talk about brands, about what brands might try to do? I'm all for like less social media criticism from keyboard warriors who don't really know the industries that they're talking about. What do you think? What are we going to see from that? More Sophies or?
Well, here's the thing. This is the thing about the transits, right? It's like we actually don't really know until it starts happening. We won't ever know because you often have to live it out to know how that transit is going to express itself.
Yeah, for sure.
So obviously, yeah, there's going to be like a big upheaval in the way that we communicate. Yeah, I think it will be really, really interesting because it does feel like we're kind of like at an apex where it's like, wow, everything is terrible on like social media, on the internet right now. Like something's got to give.
So true.
I'm so curious about your journey into spiritual tools like astrology and everything that you use for divination. Could we hear a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, as I said, I'm a Pisces. So I'm like, I didn't choose this life, it chose me. It started because I loved magazines and at the back of 17 magazine, YM or whatever, like everything, there was always a horoscopes page. And I just really loved being a Pisces. And it was a way that I felt seen by it. And it felt like a tool to help me understand my friends. Like my best friend in grade school was a Libra. And so I was just always really curious. Like I would collect like those gemstone bracelets. And I think by high school, I had bought a tarot deck, even though I had no idea what I was doing with it. I still have it to this day. Of course, it like comes with little instructions, but oh my God, tarot is so complicated. That's a lane I won't ever really go down. I mean, at least for myself to learn. Obviously, I love tarot. And then it's so interesting because it really took me a long time before I started taking it really seriously and understanding that like, oh, there's really more here for me to learn. Because throughout my 20s, obviously I was still really into astrology, but I was just like, I read Susan Miller's monthly forecast. I would read like the horoscopes on tarot.com. And that was kind of it. Like I didn't even know about the world of natal astrology. It's so fascinating to me how I never really tried to dig much deeper into it. And then like my world kind of got blown open the first time I had my birth chart read. And it was actually at like a press preview. One of my colleagues was there and she texted me and she's like, I was in the office and she was like, you got to come to this preview. There's an astrologer here doing chart readings. And I was like, oh shit, say less. I'm getting in a cab and I'm coming downtown. And the astrologer was Rebecca Gordon, who has now been my astrologer for like 10 years. And literally she was just giving 10-minute readings. We were in like the back of the showroom. We were in this little room, but there were still like clothes lining the room. So like people are, coming in to see the clothes. And like, she's kind of like, whispering my reading to me. And I'm like in tears.
Oh, I love this.
I'm in tears because she just like, again, like made me feel seen in a way that I had never felt before. And, really spoke to, I think, some things about my existence that just felt like really heavy on my heart. And I was like, oh my God, I need to know more. And I think within a couple weeks, I went to see her for like a full reading. Like I record all my readings. So I still have my first reading. That was also a big part of why like I started my newsletter, and we'll get to that. And it just fucking rocked my world. It was so fascinating. And it just gives you this feeling of like, oh, okay, there's actually nothing wrong with me. This is just the way that I was born.
It's just in my blueprint. Yeah.
It's just the way that I was born. And so what I always say like about natal chart readings is like, I think it really helps you to like own the parts of you that are your strengths. And for your perceived weaknesses, they get reframed as like, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just like, this is part of the challenge that you're meant to overcome. This is part of your journey. And like nothing is like a death sentence. Like you can transcend a lot of this stuff. And I feel like in my chart, I have transcended a lot of the sort of like negative aspects, but it's amazing.
This makes me laugh because with my astrologer, she always says to me like, wow, you really live out your chart. Like every time I talk to you, you're doing the thing. Like, it's like, you just like stop and pivot. And it's so true. And I look at my own daily transits. I look at like the transits of significant times in my life. And I will also say, I like really do truly live out my chart. But I want to say something that I love about how you talk about astrology. I think about like an Instagram story you did at one point that stuck with me, where you were like, you know what, relationships are not really in my astrology right now. So that's not my number one priority. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to date. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to like go out there and like have a great like fifth house like existence. But it does mean that that's like, I just don't think that that's happening for me right now, which to me, that just feels like so refreshing that you're not centering like what you want. You're really working with astrology in that way. So how has moving in the world in that way like been maybe lighter for you, or how does that feel?
I know, like what transit was that? I think that may have been during the last set of nodes, like Aries, Libra. I was like, that transit's not giving me anything.
Me too.
That transit's not giving me a damn thing, because I'm a Taurus North node, so I had just gone through my nodal return.
Got it.
And came up empty-handed out of that. So it was like, so I know Aries and Libra is definitely not giving me anything. Yeah. That's my 12th and 6th house. And yeah, but it's nice that like, yeah, you can still go about your life and whatnot, and it just kind of takes the pressure off of things. But sorry, what was that? What was your actual question?
I was saying, you know, how does having this information, because it sounds like you meet with Rebecca on a regular basis and you sort of know what's coming up for you. You kind of can shift your priorities, or maybe you don't see it as shifting priorities, but how are you working with the knowledge that you're getting from your readings and how you approach life?
So I only get one reading a year, but obviously I know my own chart, so I can look at my transits, but I try not to. I'm trying not to look at them too much. It's like, obviously I have an idea because I know where the planets are. So I do know what areas of my chart are being activated. I'm more likely to follow the moon cycle. I talk about this all the time. Like, I'm obsessed with tracking the moon because I think especially like as I'm very sensitive. So it's like, even if I don't actually, you know, I don't wake up thinking like, oh, the moon's here. But sometimes as I'm like going through my day and I'm like, why is this happening? Or why does this feel so hard? And then it like clicks in and I'm like, oh, that's right. Because the moon in Aries transit just like totally fucked me up because it's my 12th house. And then like literally as soon as the moon moves into Taurus in my first house, I'm like, oh, I'm a brand new bitch. Like, I can take on the world. It's so crazy, but I'm very sensitive. And then again, like moon in Gemini is really hard for me because my Chiron is there. And so that first day of moon in Gemini, like I feel depressed.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, I'm very like, it's almost like very up and down, like manic. But it really helps me figure out like when I can be like, when I know I'm going to be really productive, when I'm going to feel like a bit more social, when do I just need to like push through something, and when do I just like need to kind of call it a day, throw the towel in, it's okay, like take it easy. So I love tracking the moon cycle. But yeah, as far as like the other transits of my chart, I do really like to go back and look at what were the transits happening when major things happened in my life. I actually have like a Word document that I started going back to like when I had my first panic attack, because that's where you really see like the magic of how astrology plays out. Because as I said again, and I will say over and over, it's like you don't actually know how a transit is going to play out. And I'm prone to overthinking. So that's why I try not to keep up with it every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there's so much pressure when you try to guess what could happen based on the transits.
And I have anxiety. So it's just, it's honestly, it's not good for me.
Oh, 100.
Yeah, sometimes if I'm feeling wild, I might take a look at my transits. Like I really
Right.
like the Shani app, and I'm like, oh, that is why I'm grouchy as hell because I'm having clarity in my
Exactly.
relationships.
Right.
It can be
Exactly.
very can be
Exactly.
helpful, but I agree. It's like you don't always want to be checking up on it in a
Yeah.
intense way, but it can be such a wonderful guide.
I know. And I kind of had like a big revelation around the Saturn in Pisces transit because I don't know. I think I went into that transit feeling a bit more optimistic about it than it's actually turned out to be. I think it's actually felt like a really hard transit. I have my Jupiter, Sun, and Pisces, Venus in Pisces, and it's oddly brought me like a lot of self-doubt. Like more so than I'm typically used to navigating. And I went into it thinking like it was going to be fine because I'm like, well, I know Saturn energy. My moon is in Capricorn. And so I'm very familiar with it. But I actually, so like my point is like, even when you know these things, sometimes I don't know. I'm like, I still kind of like gave into the worst of the transit. And I was just on a trip a couple weeks ago with three girls, and they were all having their Saturn return. And actually, I feel like in the last couple weeks, I've just happened to look at the charts of a lot of people who are having their Saturn return and having like a great year. And it's because they were putting in the work. And that is like an essential part of navigating the Saturn transit is like it's hard. It takes you to task. It really wants you to put in the fucking work and then you will get the rewards. And I'm like, that's what I have not been doing. Like I have not built the structure for myself. I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, I need to have a different mindset for the rest of this transit so I can actually like get something good out of it.
That's such a beautiful revelation. I mean, I grew up with tarot, palm, tea leaf reading as part of my, cultural practice. So I was really familiar with that kind of divination. But when
Mm-hmm.
I was in my Saturn return, I didn't know about Saturn returns. I wasn't raised with astrology. But
Girl, same. And that is like my one biggest regret is like, I wish I knew what the fuck I was going through. Like, I did know it was my Saturn return, but I didn't know that I needed to stand the fuck up.
yeah,
Yeah.
but like I still got divorced though. Like I still did all the things that I needed to do, but I
Yeah.
think it would have been cool just to be like, I'm doing this because it's time for me to step into my next self or shed everything, all of that. But it's so funny that even intuitively, I was banging around and it was tough, but I still got divorced, still moved to New York, and did all the things I needed to do.
Right. That's the thing, of course. Like, I really believe at the end of the day, like, we all get to where we're meant to be. And even if, like, again, this Saturn and Pisces transit, even though I felt like it kind of beat me down, well, that's maybe what I needed so that I could then rise up again,
Yeah.
And this my Saturn return, like it really changed my life in a way that I could not foresee. Like, and mine was happening in my. Do you guys do whole sign or Placidus?
I like whole sign, Jess likes Placidus.
I do, yeah.
I know I like Placidus too, but it's really tricky because I have a couple of placements that change based on whole sign. So like I have Saturn, I'm a Taurus rising, so my seventh house is Scorpio, but my Saturn is in Sagittarius, but it's in my seventh house in Placidus, eighth house, obviously in whole sign. At the end of the day, it's still like similar, but
Right.
and same thing with I have a 12th house Pisces Venus in Placidus, but in whole sign it's in my 11th house with the rest of my Pisces placements. So that like it really kind of throws me off. Sometimes I'm like, well, am I 12th house Venus or not? I'm definitely a 12th house Venus. Yes, I'm definitely a 12th house Venus, unfortunately. So yeah, mine was all about relationships, and it really fucking was. I traded my therapist for a tarot reader story was basically about my Saturn return. And yeah, I like had a complete breakdown and meltdown over this guy, but I now can recognize that what happened during my Saturn return put me on the path that I'm on today. And like, how incredible is that?
That's so powerful. Does your connection to divination influence the kinds of business decisions you make a lot, or does it feel like it's more personal, introspective, moving through things?
Yeah, I don't really think that it affects my business. Only in the personal of like sort of how I'm approaching things. But, if I'm like hiring someone, I do look at their chart and look at how, it compares to mine. But that's like kind of obviously also if I was like launching something, I would be mindful of like when I'm launching it and look for a time that was the best. But that's kind of the extent of it.
Yes, I did a birth chart for this podcast.
Did you?
Yes, and that's how we decided what day and time we were going to launch.
I love that.
I love
Yeah, we have like an intense grand cross in the birth chart of Immaterial World, so it's really cool. I do want to talk about the divination for your business though, because I feel like it sort of becomes this centerpiece. You talk about therapy, you talk about mental health advocacy, you talk about fashion. And so for me, when I'm looking at your work, like divination really lives in the middle for you of talking about all of this. And maybe it gives it like a more like fun, sexy kind of twist in a way. But what level, because you are talking about therapy so much, you're talking about divination, what level of nuance does divination give you, maybe that therapy doesn't give you? Maybe as a creative, like it gets you to think of things differently. I'm just curious.
I know. I feel like it's so hard to articulate in a sense. And I think like separate from that story that I wrote, because that story is actually about how I was like abusing tarot. And so I've
Jez is familiar with this.
Yeah, so I'm like, I've moved out of that era. I almost never get tarot readings anymore, like maybe once a year. Because again, it's like sometimes when you go into that dark side, then when you come out, you're like, oh, now I trust myself. And like, again, like that is such a beautiful thing to be able to take away from it. It's like, I actually didn't need that. It was like I was using it to soothe my anxiety, but now I can soothe my own anxiety because I trust myself. I trust my purpose. I trust like the mission that I'm on this planet for and what the universe wants for me. So I know that like specifically like when things aren't working out the way that I want them to, I'm just like, well, it's okay, because I know I still have faith that like I'm going to get to where I'm going, even if there's bumps in the road. Like I really do like feel so deeply connected to my purpose, and especially like through this newsletter. So a lot of that I've gotten because of my belief in astrology, things I've heard in tarot readings, spiritual books that I've read. Like, listen, it's similar to like religious beliefs, It's like this is what helps me to get up every day and know that I'm doing the right thing, and that at the end of the day, I'm going to be guided to the right place. I don't know if that answers your question.
I love this, and I love that you speak about working with purpose. What do you think that your purpose is, and how are you living it through Forward Joy?
I mean, in the most simplest of terms, it's like I know my purpose is to help people, and I can help people in different ways, right? I think even when I was working in fashion, I was helping people. Like clothes are still important, even though we want to act like they're so superficial and this and that, but they're not, because we all have to get dressed every day. And I use fashion so intentionally because I want to use it to feel like the best version of myself.
Oh, it's identity creating, like in both of these worlds. It's like helping people show and shape who they are, for sure.
And, and then also there's this mental health piece. Like, guys, like when I was in 6th grade, when I had my first panic attack, it fucking uprooted my entire world, flipped it on its head. I struggled for years, and I had no idea that one day I was going to be talking about it with the world that I was going to share my story and other people were going to see themselves in my story, that I was going to be able to help people navigate that or know that they're going to be okay, that they're not alone. There is no way for me to have ever known that. Like, and I'm so thankful. Like, it's weird, right? Because that was undoubtedly like one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. So it really sucked in the moment. It's the same thing with like my Saturn return. It sucked so bad in the moment. But then when you come out of it, you realize, oh, like this is what comes of that. And I also feel like that's the funny thing about the name of my newsletter, Forward Joy, is that it's actually my dad's birth name. My dad,
Dude, I love that.
yeah, my dad was born in Jamaica. You know, he grew up on a farm on the north coast of the island. Like, I don't even know he has no idea like where that name come from, but he hated it. So when he moved to the US, he legally changed it. And, you know, I only know it because I've seen it on his birth certificate. And so when I started thinking about names for my newsletter, it just kind of felt like, I don't know, it could be something like kind of cheeky and fun. And it's something that is deeply connected to me. And I'll never forget, I was signed to an agency at the time and they were like, is your newsletter going to be about joy though? And I was like, no, not always.
No.
It's actually really not going to be about joy all the time. Unless you share my perspective that like, I mean, it's just like the concept of like, we can't be happy all the time, but like, there's always going to be joy ahead of us. So that's why like forward joy, there's always going to be joy ahead of us, no matter where we are in our journey. If we're depressed right now, if we're struggling right now, that doesn't last forever. Like you will find the joy again. And also so much of my joy has been born from the fact that I have gone through these really difficult moments. I have like through tears and just awful times, like I've been able to claw myself out of dark holes to be okay again and like be rooted in myself. And now, as I said, like be able to share these stories and help people. And that brings me so much joy, so much purpose, so much fulfillment.
That's beautiful. Just for people who haven't experienced your newsletter, your podcast,
Yep.
what is the Forward Joy experience? Like, what are the pillars? What are you doing there?
So when I launched it, I said that, you know, it's a newsletter that's dedicated to self-discovery, self-investment, self-care. It's whatever I want it to be, right? It's an extension of me. So it's twice a month, which I love because it doesn't feel overwhelming. And I feel like it's like people can look forward to it because it's not piling up in your inbox. And I usually like will write a personal essay once a month, or sometimes maybe I'll do a book roundup or a podcast roundup. But I write a lot of personal essays. And then the other one is typically an interview with someone that I admire, that I think has an interesting point of view. So I've obviously interviewed my astrologer, Rebecca Gordon, my tarot reader, Violetta Laze. I've interviewed mental health professionals, my friend matchmaker Maria, who is a matchmaker by, you know, profession. I just had a traditional Chinese medicine doctor on. Like, I just get to explore all the things that I'm genuinely curious about. I talk a lot about dating, of course, because I am a Pisces. I have a 12th house Pisces. I'm also a Taurus rising. I'm ruled by Venus. So much of my existence is unfortunately about the pursuit of love. So that is also a huge theme for me.
In all forms that it comes. I mean, living in your purpose is love too. So
of course,
there you go. What are you calling in for 2026, and especially with that part of your business?
That is such a great question, because the last year and a half has actually felt like quite hard for me because I haven't had a team to really support me. So I've kind of been like literally on an island by myself, doing all the many different parts of my business. And so like this year I launched the podcast extension for Forward Joy. I have an incredible podcast editor. 2 months ago, I just hired she's basically a creative strategist, but she's helping me produce my newsletter and podcast and just supporting me in all the ways that I had zero support. I was like, the intern, the boss, the everything. And so I want to continue to kind of build out this support system for myself so I can continue to really give the best of myself to this newsletter. And I really want to do more in-person events. I've done them sporadically over the last 3 or 4 years now. I've actually done most of them in London because I spend half the year in London. And I think it feels more approachable because while I know that's my second biggest audience, it's going to be smaller than a New York audience. So a friend of mine who's also in the mental health advocacy space, but she has a psychology degree. I was talking to her earlier this summer, and I said to her how sometimes it feels kind of hard to navigate this space knowing that I'm not a mental health professional, right? I do not have a degree. I've read a lot of books though, and I've been in therapy since I was 11 years old. So I do know a lot, but I never want to cross that line. I don't want to be a Mel Robbins, okay?
Say it again, please. Say it again.
I do not want to be a Mel Robbins, completely overstepping boundaries and telling people about how they need to just get along with their families over the holidays. Girl, respectfully, shut the fuck up. But my friend said, she was like, yeah, but you offer peer support. You are talking about things you've gone through and you're connecting with other people who have gone through like-minded things or similar things. And that term peer support just kind of triggered this light bulb inside of me that was oh my God, that's right. That's what I'm here for. And she even talked about Alcoholics Anonymous, it's she's that is a peer support group. It's all similar people who have gone through struggles and they're all there to support one another. So I'm that's how I really want to think about how I continue to do my events. It's I want us all to be a community that we are here to lean on one another and to help one another and to all be a resource for one another.
That's so beautiful. I mean, I was raised in a divination tradition as a job, and we always think of it as community care, that peer support. We're doing it to be of service to each other. It's not about hierarchy or anything like that. It's about
completely,
showing up for each other with a lot of compassion and a willingness to create space for people to explore. I just love that. I'm so behind that.
Yes. Thank you. So to be able to do more events, I think it would be really nice, but it's also a little tricky for me because I get really energetically drained from being around people, a lot of people in that sense. So I think that's also a reason why I haven't done it's weird because it's I want to do them, but at the same time, sometimes I get scared because after I do literally a 2-hour event, I can't speak to anybody for 24 hours after that. And even leading up to the event, I try not to do anything, not talk to anybody because, the people are there to get things from you. And you also you have to deliver. So, it can be really draining on me. But I've also talked to a lot of people who struggle with the exact same thing. So I'm okay, it's not just I don't want to take it as a sign that I shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, it's objectively draining. And I think those kinds of self-care routines that you have before and after are really smart. And that'll help you find how many you get to do in a year and in what capacity and what your boundaries are around it for sure. How can people best support your work?
By subscribing to my newsletter.
Yes.
Yes. As I said, it's only twice a month, so I feel it's really approachable. And I do paywall a little bit of my content. So for paid subscribers, you also get a bonus newsletter at the end of the month where sometimes I'm recapping my travels. I travel quite a bit. So I had spent half of October in Madrid. So I did a full on Madrid guide for my paid subscribers. For November, I did a bonus gift guide that was just like, here are all the things that I have genuinely like used this year and truly loved. And yeah, sometimes it's just like, here's the inside scoop on things I'm not sharing with everybody.
That sounds wonderful. I loved your Madrid outfit that you posted. It was like this long dress that you had a scarf that you talked about.
Oh, yes.
Oh my
The
God.
Doan dress. I know.
Yeah.
That dress is stunning. I mean, I love Doan. I love like the designers. It's so funny because they support Planned Parenthood, and every year for Giving Tuesday, they make a big donation. I think they did like 20,000 this year, but they do it every single year, and they post about it on Instagram. And of course, because Doan kind of has this like trad wife aesthetic, it attracts a lot of Trump supporters, unfortunately. But they don't realize that the founders are staunchly liberal and, pro-choice and all of those things. So it is literally like my favorite day of the year when they post their support for Planned Parenthood. I highly suggest after this podcast going and reading the comments, because they are having an absolute meltdown. They were like, had I known, I'm returning the dresses I just bought. I'm never shopping here again. Like, this is so insane. And oh my God.
I'm dead. I love it.
I love this so much because it really goes back to that like brand alliance that we were talking about, finding the brands that are supporting the things that you care about. So what a way to end this conversation. Full circle. Oh my God, Chrissy, you are a joy. Thank you so much for joining us. This was amazing.
I'm so happy, Jessica, that you commented on my Instagram so that we could all be here today. As I said, closed mouths don't get fed. Like you have to ask for what you want. And I think because of also like my editorial background, I'm like, I want to interview that person. Listen, they might say no, but I'm going to reach out and ask.
Yeah, you have to. We're so happy. So grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I like to see you shining, shining on your dreams. You're a special kind of magic, shining on your favorite things. You're pretty like a sunset, you're really like a pearl. You're a special kind of magic, dancing in a crazy swirl, in a crazy swirl. Immaterial world, come meet me in the immaterial world. As far as the galaxy goes, we're flying in the immaterial world. Immaterial world, come meet me in the immaterial world. Your mind, your body and soul, delighted in the immaterial world. The immaterial world. The immaterial world.
Immaterial World is hosted by Jessica Richards and Jezmina von Thiele. Music by Thiele. Artwork by Lane Friend. Follow us at Immaterial World Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Visit our website at www.immaterial-world.com or send us an email at immaterialworldpod@gmail.com. Thank you for being part of our immaterial world.
Welcome to the immaterial world.